Hello, everybody. Dan Lucas with Credo here. Hope you're having a good day. First, I want to say I'm sorry about I was trying to get the lighting as good as I can, but I think the content's more important than the lighting, so I'm just going to keep going. Gosh, we are on the last day. We're on day 50 of 50 states in 50 days, and so we're doing. Of course, today we're doing the state of Hawaii, and it was the 50th state admitted to the Union. It was admitted on August 21st, 1959. So, just pretty, shortly after Alaska. And, of course, now this time in history, I mean, we're going into the 60s, which is a very interesting decade. But, at this time in our country's history, I mean, Eisenhower was just kind of finishing up his second term. We were getting ready to turn a corner in sort of a new chapter. Things in Vietnam were starting to pick up a little bit, though we still weren't totally committed and escalated there. But it was an interesting time, and I know that Eisenhower was looking at both Alaska and Hawaii as very strategic locations for us militarily, for our national security. So it's just, it's interesting when you can see the entire, when you see all 50 states and how they were admitted. It's interesting to put that in context of what was going on historically at the time, because it kind of gives you a different perspective and different sense of what was happening. And the fact that these states were receiving statehood. Well, they weren't states at the time, but they're states now, of course, and they were receiving statehood in these periods of time. And it's kind of interesting to see the timing of it, what was going on, and how did that affect what states were admitted, and the timing of all that. So anyway, this is the last video, so we made it. 50 videos. We have well over 10 hours of content on this whole thing, but suffice to say, you might live in Hawaii, and this might be the only video you watch. So I'm going to get into Hawaii pretty quickly here. Okay, so the state of Hawaii, it has quite a few business tax incentives. It has a lot of, and a lot of these also apply to individuals, right? I mean, you contractors. I mean, you might have a small LLC, you might be self-employed, and you have a business, per se, and these would apply to you as well. So even if you're a pass-through entity, small private company, these still apply to you. And so what I want to do here as far as Hawaii is, Hawaii does have a pretty robust list of credits and incentives. Hawaii has a very high tax rate. I can't remember if it's the second or third highest in the country, but it's very high. Not as high as California, but very high. I still think it's around 10%, near 10%. Of course, right now California is at like 13.3%, and I think that's going up pretty quickly here. Of course, the date of this video is September 2021. And I think in the future it might even be higher than 13.3. Hawaii might be higher too. Anyway, they both have very high income tax rates. So that being said, you're probably interested in tax credits and incentives. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read through the list just to get this out there for the content. And I'm going to read the list of different incentives and credits. There's actually 49 on the list that I'm going to use. And then I'm going to dive into a few of them that I think are a little more relevant, or that I can add some meat to the bone on. And then we're going to finish the video, okay? So first, let's start with the income tax credits. So these are Hawaii income tax credits, state income tax credits, okay? So we have first, capital goods excise tax credit, the renewable energy technologies income tax credit. We have the tax credit for research activities. We have the enterprise zone tax credit. We have the credit for employment of vocational rehabilitation referrals. We have the tax credit for low-income housing. We have the fuel tax credit for commercial fishers. We have motion picture, digital media, and film production income tax credit. That's big. That comes into play a lot in Hawaii. We have the school repair and maintenance tax credit. We have the important agricultural land qualified agricultural cost tax credit. We have the renewable fuels production tax credit. We have the organic foods production tax credit. We have the healthcare preceptor income tax credit. We have the historic preservation income tax credit. We have the ship repair industry tax credit. Whew, so those are all the income tax credits. Now we have a couple areas of exempt income. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about these. There's two things that are exempt from tax. Okay, so these pieces of income are exempt from taxes. Stock options income from a qualified high technology business, QHTB. We have, and then the second one is royalties and other income derived from patents, copyrights, and trade secrets. Okay, that's important. We're going to go back to that. All right. So now we're going to talk about the what's called the GET, the General Excise Tax, and there are different incentives that they put in place to mitigate those taxes. So let's start with ones that are exemptions. They can be exemptions or deductions from your gross income. Sales of tangible personal property shipped outside the state. Sales to the federal government. Sales of tangible personal property imported for resale at wholesale. Exported contracting or services. Intangible property used outside the state. Affordable housing projects. Enterprise zones. Foreign trade zone sales. Taxes. Common paymaster. Related entities. Certain scientific contracts with the United States, small business innovation research grants, transportation and handling of agricultural commodities, services related to ships and aircraft, shipbuilding and ship repair businesses, aircraft service and maintenance facility, air pollution control facility, sales to diplomats and consular officials, aircraft leasing, Hawaii Convention Center operator, professional employment organizations, patient-centered community care programs, sublease deductions, subcontract deductions. Okay, now there's one item that just lowers your GET rate. That's wholesale sale of services. We have another exemption related to being disabled. And so that there's a bunch of disability provisions you can look at. So if you are disabled, you're going to be wanting to look at what these exemptions are in the state of Hawaii. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to talk about use tax incentives. What are use tax? It's a sales tax for people that are out of state. Okay. A lot of people miss this. It's a big area. Sales and use tax is a big area. We actually work with a really, really great guy who's a specialist. His name's Ned Lenhart, and he's awesome. And we work with him a lot on sales and use tax issues because it's an area where a lot of people can get tripped up. Okay. Nasty use tax bills. Don't want them. Okay. All right. So exemptions from use tax. Services or contracting imported for resale outside the state. Scientific use property. Aircraft service and maintenance facility. Air pollution control facilities. Now, if you want a lower, not exempt, lower use tax rate, there's one for tangible personal property imported by a service provider. Okay. That was all 49. That's kind of ironic. 49 tax credits because this is the 50th state, so we've already done 49 states and we just did 49 credits. Wow. Mind blowing, right? Okay. Let's dive into a few of these in more detail. Okay. So first, on the income tax incentives, let's talk about the tax credit for research activities. So we've talked about R&D a lot. We talk about R&D a lot on a federal basis because it's a federal credit. And some states let you double dip on that. Hawaii is one of those double dip states. And I don't like calling this research as much as I like calling it innovation because sometimes people think of R&D or research and development. They think of lab coats, they think of goggles, beakers, all that kind of stuff. They think of pharmaceuticals, they think of biotech, all that stuff. That's not necessarily what it is. You can get, I've gotten R&D credits from hiring consultants to come in and help build systems and tweak software and things like that to really innovate a new process, innovate a new product. There's a lot of, whatever you're doing that is to, you're investing in something. It's money that you wouldn't spend unless you wanted to grow your business and invest in your business. Okay. So in innovation, doesn't have to have some high bar where you're like discovering electricity. Okay. So if you're doing any of that kind of spend, it's significant. And when I'd say significant, I would say, anything above like 1% of your revenues is definitely going to be significant, just as a rule of thumb. Federal credits are huge. I mean, we have clients that get six figures, easy, comfortably six figures. Not sure if I've seen anybody with seven figures yet, but we've had a lot of clients at six figures of federal R&D credits. State credits can be just as big. Sometimes they're even bigger. Okay. Anyway, Hawaii lets you double dip. So if you're in Hawaii and you're doing any of this type of activity, you can get federal credit, you can get state credit. And being that your state has such a high income tax rate, I don't know why you would not be jumping all over this. Okay. Enterprise zone tax credit. So you might be familiar with federal opportunity zones. Federal opportunity zones provide tax incentives, mostly for cap gains. We actually, and you can actually remove all of your cap gains through an opportunity zone. You can even invest in it after the fact. Now, we're actually using it now more as a deferral mechanism than as a cap gain mitigator. And then we can take it and roll it into various other options. But, that being said, that's sort of beyond the scope of this video. They have enterprise zones. They have enterprise zones in Hawaii that are federal zones. Like they are kind of set up by federal government for their tax incentives. And then they have ones that are the state of Hawaii. So you have to look at the map and kind of see, am I in a zone? And if you're in a zone, there are tax credits available for you. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to geographically take certain areas from poverty to prosperity. Okay, not an atypical thing. I think these are awesome. I love these, and they've been proven to work. There's not like hundreds of years of data behind this, but so far they've been proven to work. So I'm a big fan of these. So if you're a business in Hawaii, take a minute and look up the map and see if you're in one. And if you're in one, there's a ton of stuff that you can do there as far as getting some of these credits and incentives and taking advantage of it. All right. Let's see. On the organic foods production tax credit, let's talk about that real quick because that's unique. So if you're a taxpayer that is associated with the production or handling of organic foods, you can claim an organic food production tax credit for the taxable year. To qualify, you have to be a producer, handler, or handling operation selling organic food. So I can't remember that I've seen this in any other states. There could be, certainly if you're producing organic foods, you may qualify for other agricultural or distribution manufacturing type tax credits because you might qualify just for those general industry credits. But this one is very specific for organic food. So there's a lot of it that goes on in Hawaii. I know that for a fact. So if you're doing any of that, we want to be looking into this credit. Okay. Let's see. Historic preservation income tax credit. These are not atypical. We see these in a lot of states. There are certain buildings, areas, monuments, et cetera, that are deemed eligible for historic preservation. I mean, certainly, anything around Pearl Harbor, things like that, right, would qualify for this. But it doesn't have to be that. It just you might be surprised. You might be in a building that has been deemed a historic preservation credit type building. So if you are in any area or own a piece of real estate or even leasing a piece of real estate and you have done some rehab work, you want to look at this. Let's see. Ship repair industry, obviously there's tax credits for you there. Okay, stock option income from qualified QHTB. What does that stand for? That stands for, sorry, I want to make sure I get this right. That stands for Qualified High Technology Business. Okay, so in the federal law, there's something called Qualified Small Business Stock, and you can get up to $10 million cap gain for free. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's big. And in here, it says that if you have stock options, so it could be you're an employee in a bigger company. And let's see, income from stock options or stock, including stock issued from stock options or warrants from qualified business, is exempt from state income tax. Awesome. Okay. Royalties. Okay, so amounts received. Okay, now another one. Amounts received by an individual or a qualified high-tech business as royalties and other income derived from patents, copyrights, and trade secrets owned by them is exempt from income tax. Okay, so if you've sold a company and you're living off IP income, you might want to move to Hawaii. Let's see. The stuff that, if you're doing business with the federal government, you're going to want to look at some of those credits in Hawaii. Let's see. If you're exporting or contracting any services, so if you are, contracting outside your state, you're going to be looking at the credits available there. affordable housing projects. A lot of people invest in those, and they can be partnerships. It's not a real sexy type of investment sometimes, but they do typically pay pretty good returns. I'm not giving investment advice, but along with these tax credits, it can be a really nice investment. Let's see. Some other ones here that we might want to look at. Small business innovation, research grants, amounts received and grants awarded by High Technology Development Corporation that supplement federal small business innovation research are exempt from GET. Okay. Let's see. That's what I want to talk about. Hawaii Convention Center operator. Amounts received by the operator of Hawaii Convention Center for reimbursement of costs or advances made, et cetera, under the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Get some credits. Professional employment, also PEOs. Like we have a PEO. We use JustWorks as our PEO. Professional employment organizations. Set up there, you're going to get, let's see. I'm sorry. It says actually that amounts received by a PEO that is registered with the DLIR, I don't know what that is, I have to look that up, from a client company for amounts that are distributed by a PEO for employee wages, salaries, payroll taxes, insurance premiums, and benefits, including retirement, vacation, sick leave, health benefits, and similar employment benefits for covered employees at a client company are exempt from the GET. Neat. Let's see. Sublease deduction. You can get a deduction if you lease real estate from a lessor under a written lease and then sublease the same property to someone else under a written lease. That's neat. That's definitely unique. Tangible personal property imported. So if you import tangible personal property, let's see, you're subject to the use tax rate and you can get exempt from that in GET if you're doing that. So that's really it on the detail. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on there. There's a ton of stuff going on in Hawaii. And if you're in business there, you have a high tax rate. You want to be looking at some of these, taking advantage of some of these for sure. Okay. Again, remember, there's federal credits, state credits. Some double dipping here. Don't forget the R&D credit. That's huge. Okay. All right, for that, I'm going to finish. So thank you, Hawaii. Thank you for all the pineapple. Thank you for all the beautiful scenery in the movie industry. Remember, those film credits are there too. So if you're doing anything in videos, even if it's just commercials or digital content, you're going to want to get those credits as well. Any questions? Put a comment in the video. Send us an email. Go to credofinance.com. Get in touch with us. We'll help you. Give us a question. Challenge us. We'll look it up for you on a case-by-case basis. All right? All right, thanks. Have a great day.